Okay, this is quick demonstration of the C64 using the SNES D-pad controller. So first of all, enter the menu by pressing start. R1 is like the joystick fire button, so you can go up and down. So we're going to select favorites, go down to PAL. If you notice, the directory structure is almost the same. Some games, like Heaven Bound, will not appear in the NTSC because some of them they don't work in NTSC mode, or vice versa. So we're going to go down to Heaven Bound, and I'll use R1 to insert the disk so you can see the disk is in the drive. Now I'm going to load it the old-fashioned way, this game. So I press start to back out of the menu. I'm going to say load $, comma 8. Okay, so it loads the disk drive, and then I'm going to say list. Okay, and you can see there's two things here that we can load. We can go L Shift O, and that's the same as load. And we can go L Shift I for list, and there you go. That will run the program. That's just when you quick launch a game from the menu, that's what the Commodore 64 is doing. It's automatically doing that for you. So for this game, to get through this screen, which is a crack screen, somebody who's cracked the game, copyright protection, typically you have to press spacebar to get through this screen, but because for this game, I've mapped the control to this button here, the select button. So if you make your own control files, you can make it so that you have to use the keyboard less. So most of my control files have X and Y as N and Y. So when you get to a screen like this, I just press X for N. So I don't have to touch the keyboard at all if I remember where I've put certain keys. And then this is joystick fire. I've programmed it. Now see, this game, typically you would have to use joystick up to jump. But I've mapped joystick up also to the A button, so you can jump. It's a little easier to jump diagonally that way. However, I usually keep the up button as jump because you can do this. You can shoot while jumping. So instead of having to press jump and then shoot. So time is running out. There we go. So let's try quick loading a game. What's a good game? Flimbo's Quest. Actually, no. Let's CJ's Elephant Antics. So you put the disc in with the R button, right trigger. Now I'm going to quick launch it by pressing A. So the buttons for the controller that are normally up here, that helps you get through the menus and stuff, those are kind of all over the place here. So fast load, usually if you fast load, it'll crash. So typically just say no for the fast load. And there you go. So this is another game where the character needs to jump. So I've put the jump button on the A and then this remains joystick fire. So another thing you can do if a game takes this long to load up, what you can do is wait till you get to the see, oh, I already have it saved there, right? So you see how long it takes to start up the game every time you have to load it, right? So this is, I should probably put the space bar on this button for this game. So here we go. Oh, I got killed right away. So some of these games, oh, again. So for CJ, and as well for what's the other game? DJ Puff's Magic Capers. Some games you should really check the manuals to make sure you find out all the controls, because if you press down, he throws a bomb. So if you don't look in the manuals, you might miss out some of the controls on some of these games, which can be important. Where you get the manuals from is archive.org, or just search online for the game. If it's a relatively popular game, there might be some sort of a page that shows you the different controls. So if you notice in the favorites folder, you have NTSC and PAL. That's for the different video modes, and so the actual configuration file will specify it. But every folder in here has one game, even if there's multiple files, whether it's one or multiple. Each game in here has its own controls. So typically it's adding a jump button, but there could be other things in there. Now if you see folders like J1 and J2, that just means all of these games are on a common file, a common configuration file, and it defaults the joystick to joystick 1. So if I start Frogger, I because it's a cartridge, I have to quick launch it. This is a game that's the joystick plugged in is joystick 1, right? So that works. If I didn't have the configuration file in this folder telling it that the joystick that's plugged in is joystick 1, this machine automatically recognizes the joystick as joystick 2. So you have to tell it. Now, if you have a second joystick in, the second one you plug in becomes the other joystick. So if you have the default joystick set to joystick 1, this one right now is joystick 1. If this game was looking for joystick 2, I would have to put in the configuration file joystick 2 is the primary, so that it would recognize this as joystick 2. So those are the J1 games, right? If I go to J2, these are games that are expecting joystick 2, right? These ports aren't labeled J1 or J2. These are whatever you plug into them. That's where the confusion arises, right? So you have to think about that. If you have no configuration files whatsoever, then the joystick is going to be joystick 2 all the time. But you won't be able to use this controller because the fire buttons will be up here and these will be all weird. And so if you're going to use this, you need to have some sort of control file, either for the game itself specifically or for a whole folder, like right here, J2. These are all J2 games. So, okay, expel the cartridge, and we'll put in the tape. So this is a tape file. See how it says it has a cassette there? So let's load this old-fashioned style. Load, and press play on tape. There you go. So it simulates the loading from tape. So once again, this program is expecting, it uses joystick 2 as the main controller. So in a normal Commodore 64, you would have port 1 and port 2, and you would just plug it into port 2, and if it didn't work, you would plug it into port 1, and if it works, then you know you have a J1 game. Okay. Let's try loading it differently. So I was trying to load the $, which is the list of programs on the tape. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess this one doesn't want to load that way. Let's try quick launching it. Okay, so now it's loading. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing wrong there, but so this game, it's expecting to use joystick 2. Because I have a configuration file that specifies the primary joystick as joystick 2, when I load up the file, this machine is going to look for a joystick. If there's one plugged in, this is now joystick 2. If I plug another one in, that will be joystick 1. So this is when you load a tape program, to load from tape typically takes a long time because the tape has to play. So it's actually simulating that right now. And so for this game, you have a loading screen. So the first little bit, when you load it, it'll load on the intro screen like this, and now it's loading the rest of the program. Now, if you don't like to wait for load times, if you notice there's another file up here. I'm going to quick launch that. So this is just the program that's from that tape image, and it loads up right quick. Okay, it's always good to have a control file, so there's a way you can launch the game from the menu and have it so that it reverses the joystick. So if you try playing a game and it's the wrong joystick, it's not responsive, you can go back to the menu and press B on the keyboard to quick launch it instead of on the controller. What that does is it just switches the controller. But the problem is, if you're always doing that, it's just messy. It's nicer to just have the configuration file and just quick launch it, so you don't have to remember which ones are switched around. Also, if you have a two-player game, like Mario Brothers, it allows you to, load it the same way, whether you have one or two joysticks plugged in. So this game is pretty good. These things take a lot of hits. Oh. can't hit me if I'm directly above him. Oof. Anyways. So, let's try loading another game. One more. Quick launch. So this is a disk image. When you quick launch off a disk image, it does this epileptic loading screen. So right there, you can see the command that I was entering in there, load asterisk comma 8 comma 1. All that does is it loads the first thing that's on the disk. The reason why you might want to load it the old-fashioned way is because sometimes the way things are organized on the disk, very rarely, there's typically if you're using like some software development thing, you can't load things that way. But anyways, this is a good game. So in this game, you have to protect these plants growing in those domes. Okay. So I have to harvest 6 red ones. You gotta be careful because these guys are gonna come and try to steal them. There's 1. There's 2. These little munchkin guys, they try to steal them. And then, oh. There we go. You can also fly around on a jetpack. That game gets pretty hard. What else do we have here? Yeah, all these games are good. That's why they're in the favorites directory. Now, if you notice, I have a few directories here. So Games Archive, Cartridge. Games Archive, D64. So these are I'm gonna have to move those. So I think this actually belongs. Yeah. Anyways, I need to move this tape archive that belongs under here, TOSEC archive. So what that TOSEC archive is it's like the entire library of Commodore 64 existing software, and it's all the games. So here's NTSC and PAL. Basically, it's the same directories. CRT, these are all the cartridges. Okay, so these are unsorted. This is the entire archive of cartridges, unsorted. Okay, and D64, these are disk images, so same thing. The entire archive of disk images of games. And so the TOSEC archive folder here is for you to browse for games. So in this PAL folder, there's a configuration file that runs the Commodore in PAL mode, and it gives you a basic set of controls for this controller, where X is N, Y is Y, and then you have F1, F3, and F5. And I think A is space and B is fire. So it's like a basic control pattern. You should be able to play most games, almost all of them, in this archive just by using that controller. It's also set to be J2 because most of the games are J2 by default. The cartridges tend to be J1. Not always, though. The early ones. So you can go in the archive here and find a game. Let's just go find something here. The Legend of Black Silver. Okay, and we can launch it and it doesn't run. Okay. Oops. So some, let's see what's on this disk image. Okay, so not, oh, my keyboard has gone crazy here. Oh, something's gone crazy with the keyboard. Let me just try quick loading something else. Okay, there you go. So this works. And you may or may not be able to play it. Oh man. File not found. Okay, so you see, you might end up with games like this that require more than one disk and you have to put them in at certain times. Some of them don't work properly, like that one right there. Perhaps you need to run it in read or only mode, but this is a good example of how it goes. So I'm going through the archive. Here's another one that doesn't work. Let's see if, oops. Okay, so my keyboard is back to normal. Oh wow. So I'm picking all games that don't want to run today. So this is weird. This might require a yeah, this is a weird one. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, so sometimes they require a different loading procedure. I'm picking all shit ones today. You know what? Let me pick one that I know will work. There we go, Galaxian. I'll quick launch it. F1, F1. Okay, so that game, this game works. So maybe I want to put it into the favorites folder. So I put the USB drive in the computer and I copy this file over into the favorites folder. And because it works with the same controls, the default controls that I have for this archive, then put it in favorites under J2. And look, there you go. It's already there. I put the cartridge image as well as the disk image in there. So let me just oh, is this so This game seems to have auto-loaded. Okay, so this one, there we go. I had to do a harder reset. So what I was doing there was a soft reset. What I just did there was a hard reset. The soft reset kept the game in the memory, so it was automatically loading up. So let me show you one more time the old-fashioned loading technique and how it works. So you load $8. So I can go up here and load this program specifically. And then shift clear home to clear the screen. So when you get a command like that, that's basically telling it to go to a certain area in the memory to start running the program. That's typically a sign that the program's going to load properly. So there you go. So there was a good example. We tried loading a few games with the quick launcher. We tried loading it from disk the old-fashioned way, and there was some problems. So some of the games are going to be like that, and those are typically the more rare, complicated games. You might need some sort of multiple disc set. I'm just trying to think of any other weirdness. Okay, so multiple discs. I'll show you an example of having to load from multiple disks. So let's quick launch McDonald Land here. Okay, so I quick launched from disk 1. And you have to pay attention to some of these loading screens and crack screens, because I couldn't get this game to run for a bit, and I couldn't figure out why until I paid more attention to the screen. So if you notice, look at, it says unlimited lives, unlimited energy, and invincibility. So it's basically asking you to press N. The problem is I'm going to hit N once, twice, and then for the third N, it's automatically going to start loading the program. But if you look at the bottom there, it says insert other side. Go back to the folder and you'll see the second disk here. Press R1, the R trigger, to put the disk in the drive. You now see it says McDonald 1. So I have the other disk in the drive. I just back out of the menu. I don't quick launch it because it'll crash. Now I press N. See the first N light up, the second, and then the third. And it automatically loads the second disk. There you go. Remember, this is F1, F3, F5 for the most part. So if you have a second controller plugged in, you should be able to press F3 and get two-player game. Anyways, I'll press F1. And now the game works. So multi-disc games, they're gonna tell you every once in a while that you need to switch over the discs. Oops. Oh, I can't jump on that guy. But I can throw a block at him. There you go. Now, I'm going to show you a problem related to the jump button and all that. So, watch this. Now I'm upside down. My jump button doesn't work. If I go back up here, my jump button works. Because this is joystick up. See? I can press up and jump. But what happens is, when he goes under here, up is no longer jump because he's upside down. You have to press down. So this is one game where I haven't been able to really sort that out. If I wanted to, I could make this a down button, and then you would have jump here and upside down jump over there. However, I just left it so you can jump upside down by pressing down, right? But that's just an example of some of the things that you'll encounter. It shouldn't be like, that's not too common. You know, most of these games have fairly straightforward controls, so I'm trying to think of what's one that's going to be a little bit sketchy. Okay, I'll show you Toki here. So that's a cartridge. I haven't been able to get these disk images to work. I think sometimes I get them to work. I don't know. Sometimes you just can't get a disk image to work because the way the crack for the software protection was designed, it won't work on emulation. So here's another one, creatures. So if you notice here, I have disk images. I think this one works, but I'm not sure if this one works. So you might find that there's a few disk images lying around. Some of them work, some of them don't work. So have a look here. See, so I have this Dizzy collection. You see Dizzy 1, there's 3 copies of it. One of these will work. Maybe all of them, maybe none of them. I don't know. But typically in the favorites folder, I just have ones that work. Here's another one. So there's multiple copies here, right? You might have to just try each one to see which one works. And if you get one that works, then maybe you want to go into the directory and clean up the ones that don't work. Just delete them. Here's another one. So some of them may work better than others. Some of them might have cheats enabled. Some of them don't. So you're going to want to flip around and try a few different ones. Here's, yeah. If you go into modern releases, okay, so here at Games Archive, this is just an archive from somewhere that I downloaded. It's a much smaller archive, but it tends to have more reliable working copies of things. So you might want to check through there and then maybe go into the TOSAC archive to find other stuff. The tester folder, I just have some programs here that I'm checking to see if they work. Some of these work, but if you go into modern releases, you'll see some new modern type games here. So let's pick Sam's Journey. So Sam's Journey, I have the disk image where you at certain points will have to put the right disk in, but I also have the cartridge version here. So if you see a cartridge version and a disk version, typically the cartridge version is the more reliable working copy that you want to use. They don't always have cheats enabled though. So space to quit that menu. So there you go. This game, if you press space, it gives you a bunch of instructions how to play the game. Sometimes when you get to games like that, it's good to go through the entire manual just to see any controls that might be there. So this game is a modern game, so this is an example of games that people are still currently developing. This was made in 2017. So this game looks really good. It's made using modern tools, so it's a lot easier to make a very good looking, high quality game than it was in the past. Part of the reason why this game looks so good is because it makes use of more memory than the Commodore 64 had originally, which was 64 kilobytes. So if you make a game on a cartridge, you know, you can add memory to the cartridge, you can add extra hardware to the cartridge that makes it possible for you to save games, you know, persistent memory on the cartridge. The thing is, extra memory, especially back in those days, it was really expensive. So most games were just made to work with the base system. But this game, because this is emulated, this game you can emulate extra memory. So it's very easy for people nowadays. Oops. If you're emulating, you can emulate more memory. But even if you had an original Commodore 64, there's a lot of upgrades and things that you can put into it now. So it's a lot It's a lot more common for people to have the RAM memory upgrade. So for this game, the disk image, if you run it off the disk image, there's a controller config in this directory that enables the RAM memory cartridge. So I don't know if this is going to work. Oops. Okay. So it looks like we have a program on disk. And we'll try loading it. So we got a sys command there. So that's probably gonna take us to the part of the memory where the program, beginning of the program is located. So there you go. Sometimes you want to look at this menu just to look for any fast loaders. Sometimes you have to turn the fast loader off for the game to run properly. Sometimes it crashes. So I'm not sure if this will actually load, because I don't know if I tested this fully. Okay, so I might need to check the configuration file there, or let's try quick loading it. Yeah, I might need to check the configuration file, so but this is just sort of what you go through trying to get these games working. Okay, so this one won't run. Sometimes it just takes a lot longer, so you might just want to wait a minute or two. Another thing you can try is I press select and it turns off the quick loader, or sorry, the fast loader for the hardware. So sometimes that works. Now if you had downloaded this game and you were trying to get it to work and you see how, okay, this disk image isn't working, then what you would do is you go and you delete it and you try to find a working copy of it, right? So in this case you're going to use the cartridge, because the cartridge is what works. If you look at Sonic the Hedgehog here, so you have D64 and there's 2 disk images, and D81 with 1 disk image. Okay. The D81 is just a higher capacity disk, so fast or compatible load. Press C for compatible load. Manual or game, let's press G. So there's an example of you don't want to enable the fast loader. So it asks you that time, right? I said no. Now this game is another one. It's a modern game, and in order to get it to look so good and to run so nicely, it uses the RAM expansion unit, the REU. So see how it asks you load full game into REU immediately? Say yes. Basically it's going to run as if it's off a cartridge now, more or less. And so there you go. It's loading it all into the RAM expansion unit, and there we go. So we've got jump and jump again. So I'm going to have to check the controller files on that and just change that around. But there's that. And we got another Super Mario Brothers. Quick launch. So for this game, it's recommending the European version. Alright, so we'll use that. Start game. So this is a game unofficial port of Super Mario Brothers for Nintendo. For the Commodore 64 rather. So So the guy that made this game released it on the internet for free, just to say, hey, look what I can do. And then he got hit with a cease and desist. It's not quite the same. Ah, damn. It's not as responsive as I remember on the NES, so you often miss the jump just by a fraction of a nanosecond. But, ah, jeez. All right. There's even the warp tunnels. Let's see how fast I can get through here. Woo. So that's it. That's all. Pay attention to the directory structure, where the games are located. That'll tell, and then also go on the USB stick and open up those CJM files. Take a look at how the controllers work. Look in the manual, figure out how it works, because you will find games that you will want to make your own controls for, and it's way better if you know how to do that. All right.